I've done it. I've done it. I've done it. I'm finally caught up with the Dresden Files. This is a book series that I've been reading for a year, and honestly, I could have just binged read the entire series. Not a day, but like one right after the other after the other. This is a fast-paced crime noir, detective, wizards, magical fantasy, urban fantasy. It's a great series that I could have just sped through and got through in probably like 2 weeks. But you know, life is a thing. Work, family, social life, Audible only giving me 1 credit a month, those kind of things. But I'm finally caught up with this series, and I just wanted to rank all the books before I start my first reread of the series, and then I'll just rank them all again and do individual reviews for them. Originally, I was going to do this in a tier list, but kind of the idea of a tier list is like tier list is an even ranking of only like 1 or 2 in the S tier and spread it all out. That really wouldn't work with me for the Dresden Files, just because I think I'd have probably like 7 in S tier, the majority of the rest in like A plus range, and then like a D and 1C. But so I'm just going to do these in a little bit of clusters and just let me gush about my favorite series of all times. There are only 2 books in the Dresden Files that I was going to say like I will accept criticisms for. I mean, this series has problems. I acknowledge that. And people are entitled to their opinion about the quality of the earlier books in the series. I disagree strongly for the most part, but there are 2 books that the negatives kind of maybe a little bit outweigh the positives. My least favorite book in the entire series is unfortunately the second one of Full Moon. So in this book, we're going to go extremely light on spoilers, by the way, in terms of I will mention basically nothing character plot related that's not obvious. So Full Moon, honestly, I just don't like Detective Murphy at this point. She's a fan favorite, but throughout this series, she is just not someone I like, and she is more annoying in this book, I found, than any of the other ones. And with the name Full Moon, you kind of get the impression that we're dealing with werewolves. That's made very obvious very early on. And while I come to love the characters introduced in this book later on, I was very annoyed by the second book just after how much I adored the first book, so this will be last in my ranking. The next book I enjoyed only slightly more, Blood Rights. Basically, by this point in the series, we are established in our formula in terms of Monster of the Week, crime noir. We're telling the same jokes, it's just very, very formulaic at this point in the series, and I was a little bit tired of it. Also, my main / probably only complaints personally in this series is the over-sexualization of the female characters. And the male gaze is just cranked up to an 1100 in that book. However, there is a puppy. And I'm sorry, the puppy carried this book, as the puppy shall do in later books in the series. I'm trying not to call them by name, but honestly, if you know anything about the series, you know who I'm talking about. And we are introduced to other characters that I grow to love and adore, and I really can't say too much negative about it, despite reading some negative opinions online. Those are the only 2 books that I really have genuine criticisms, disliked aspects of reading it. Everything else in this series I have adored strongly. We are into A in the tier ranking. I'm not accepting criticisms, though I acknowledge criticisms are there. I just love the series so much. I can't tell you how much I love the series. Next, we have Proven Guilty. I enjoy the horror movie monsters elements of this book. I enjoy what the characters in here become. I enjoy the council work and world development that happens in it, but the actual storyline itself was lacking. But I just love the characters in this series so much that looking back on it, even after not rereading it, I can't dislike it. The next 3 books can essentially swap back and forth. They are the early books in the series. We have Death Mask, followed by Stormfront, which is the first book in the series, followed by Grave Peril. Again, these books are essentially interchangeable in my mind in terms of how much I enjoy it. They all have fantastic, hilarious characters. We have a little bit of world building, a little bit more explanations on the magic system, and just an incredible plot with the most... I just love these characters in this world so much, and I just loved reading these stories taking place in this world with these characters. I'm going to repeat myself a lot. The next, again, 2 books, kind of interchangeable in how much I enjoyed them. We have Summer Night, followed by a White Night. I don't know which one I liked more. They're really just interchangeable. I might like Summer Night a little bit more, but I liked character work in this one too. The premise, just dealing with the fairies in this world and the war between them and how things come to play later on, Summer Night might be edging this one out a little bit. Alright, next we have some later books in the series. I'm just going to put Peace Talks and Battlegrounds up on the screen now. I don't physically own these books. They are essentially one story. You can't really read them as a standalone. They were written as one story, published separately, just like I think a month apart. They are one story. I shall be counting them as one story. So I have to kind of balance the pros and cons of each. Peace Talks being a lot of setup, explanations, exposition, and Battlegrounds being all-out payoff, all-out battle. And a little part of my enjoyment does, I gotta admit, it comes from the part of saying, well, the first book's called Peace Talks, and the following book's called Battlegrounds, so I'm guessing the Peace Talks don't go well. It's just fun. So that story, those 2 books, are kind of tied, in my opinion, with Skin Game and Cold Days. I think Cold Days would be the lower of those 3, and then it'd be Peace Talks, Battlegrounds, followed by Skin Game. I really, really, really loved this book here. You have all the fun of the Dresden Files, all the fun of the characters. You have a heist going on. I love a good heist. And then twist that I kind of saw coming, but I just had too much fun to care. It was a great thing to happen. So all these books, save the first 2, have been fantastic. Such a fun time. I don't think it's ever taken me longer than like 2 days to read a Dresden File book, and that's only when I don't have the time to read the entire thing in one sitting. These next books were into like A+ tier, whereas those were just like lower A tier. But okay, some of them are still A+. I just love this series. From here on out, I think I can genuinely say they're not really fighting for their place in the list. So these last 5, they're pretty distinct, definitive in my mind as the order of which I enjoy these books. Number 5, we have Turncoat. I adore this book. Easy S tier, no arguments. The character work that happens in this, the plot that happens, the comedy in this book, there is no argument. I love this book. Alright, this might be a controversial opinion just because this is people's either favorite book or second favorite at least. We have Deadbeat. This is when the Dresden Files, without exception, becomes incredible. When people say the Dresden Files gets better later in the series, like get through the early books and then it becomes amazing, this is the book they're talking about. absolutely incredible. In any other series in the world, this would be my all-time favorite books. It just really goes to say, like, how much I love the other books that come after this, because this one at the time I thought was flawless. I didn't think anything could top this book. The characters, the plot twist. Polka, I just read this series for this book alone. It was great. Now, my second controversial opinion. If that book was not number one, then this book is people's number one in terms of the hype around the Dresden Files. We have Changes, which again is absolutely incredible. I started the Dresden Files a year ago because I watched a book review about Changes. I committed myself to read the 12th book in a series. This is all I wanted to read, and had to read the other 11 that came before it in order to appreciate this book because of that review. I love this book. It is worth the hype. It deserves it. I sound like a broken record, but really the characters and the plot, it's a must read. This is incredible. And it only goes to show that I must be obsessed with the other 2 books in the series to put anything above this book. And I am obsessed. In second place, we have Small Favor. From the very first page, I was hooked. The characters are... Okay, I love Harry Dresden. He probably is my favorite character just because we get so much time in his head. We know him so well. Like, I feel like he is probably one of my best friends just because I'm in his head so much. But of the side characters, and you will love... I mean, I love every single side character. The one that I kind of dislike, I have learned to appreciate. But my favorites of my favorite side characters are in this book. The character that... One of my favorite side characters I come to love because of this book. And it is just amazing. Is it faster pace or more epic than Changes? No. It's a slower story compared to Changes. But I just can't get past how much I love these characters. Small Favor. Second place. Arguably, Changes can bump it out of second place every now and then, but things happen in this that I'm so excited to reread to see if I pick up on it the second time round. My all-time favorite book of all times, I'm pretty sure, without exception. I'm not even talking the Dresden Files anymore. I'm just saying, in general, my favorite book is Ghost Story. This is not a book that everybody loves. It does not have the best reputation, at least that I was aware of when I first read it. I think a part of this is because it is the follow-up to Changes. And Changes was intense. And then there was kind of a lengthy period of time between the publications of Changes and Ghost Story. And I think people had already processed what happened in Changes, and they were ready for the next exciting adventure in the Dresden Files. They were ready for the follow-up. They were ready to move on and continue the story. And that is not what Changes was. So for me, going from Changes into Ghost Story, it allowed me to breathe, to examine the consequences, and just offered a different type of story. And I really needed that. This book made me cry. The characters that I love were hurting and upset, and I just want them to be happy. I really do. I just appreciate this book so much. The Dresden Files means a lot to me. Let's put it that way. If there is a book series that I will honestly reread time and time and time again, it is going to be the Dresden Files. Fantasy is not something I read much of in the past. I was a strict horror thriller reader. This book series got me into fantasy, and I will forever be thankful for it. And yeah, that is my all-time favorite book series. Upon first read, I am so looking forward to the reread. Bye.